Hello everybody, happy Saturday. Right now we're going to go over escape characters and printing and just some of the nuts and bolts of outputting information using a standard print statement or print line statement. So I'm going to look at example source. I'm going to make a new file, a new Java file, a class file. I'm going to name it escape practice. Okay, escape practice, and you'll notice again my file is camel cased. First letter of every word is capitalized, and the first letter of the file is capitalized. So now I'm going to click finish. I will type in my main function, and the reason I'm doing that is just for some good practice to commit it to memory. Now, again, you won't necessarily care about anything up here except the fact that this entire thing is what the computer reads to run. Anything outside of this won't be automatically run, at least as far as we're concerned. So we're looking at just what is in the main class or the main function for now. So let's type out our print statement. And you'll notice that a standard print statement gives me a red underline or a compile time error that tells me that print has to have some thing, some argument, some thing inside these parentheses. And typically that thing is what we're trying to print out. So if I'm printing out a standard string, the string will have double quotes, and you'll notice that Eclipse highlights that in blue. And I will write inside those double quotes the contents that I want to print out. For example, the words "for example." And if I run this by clicking the green Run button, it'll print out my output, for example. Now, what's the difference between print and print line? Well, if I print ln, let's see what happens. Here, notice before I run that, my cursor ends on the line, for example. If I click run again, my cursor can travel now below that one line. Print line prints out everything that I'm asking it to, and then adds a character return, or a carriage return, or a line feed. Okay, so at this point we can see that print ln prints something at the end in addition to what's inside, and that is essentially the same as pressing the return key in any text editor. Okay, so let's look at print statements to begin with. So let's say I want to have a few of these. I'm going to copy this, paste, and again I would recommend typing it out to begin with, just to get some practice with the capitalization and the syntax and making sure you remember the dots and the spelling and the semicolons and everything. So if I print out the same line, print out the same content twice with the print statement, it'll print right next to each other. This just says put some stuff out to the screen, and you can get more detail if you hover over it, but it won't create an extra line. The thing that does that is either ln here, and then that'll print this first part, then the carriage return, and then the second part. And no carriage return because this line doesn't have, or this statement doesn't have ln next to it. So you'll notice here my cursor ends after the second for example. If I wanted to add a carriage return there, I'd simply add ln, and I'd run, and you can see that I can actually extend beyond that line. There's some output there. It is telling me that I can move to the next line. Now, let's talk about what I can do with strings. Let's say I have a print ln statement, and I want to print out, some addition to this, for example. The plus sign tells me that I can add or smash two strings together. The technical term is string concatenation. And the plus sign, one of the things it stands for is string concatenation in the context of the print statement, or in the context of strings in general. So I'm going to add some text. Now, if I run this, think about what you expect it to print out. And now let's see what it does print out. Notice the comma comes right after the for example. There's no space there because I haven't told the computer I want a space. Space is an actual character. The computer needs to know it wants to print that before it prints it. And then I print out the second part. If I delete this comma, my sentence becomes grammatically incorrect potentially, but we're looking at a line that's printed out without the comma that I had there. If I want to add 6 commas, I can add them. It prints out exactly that. If I want to add any text here, it should print out appropriately. Not limited to proper English. Now, let's think about what I would actually care about using this for. Why would I actually use a plus symbol? And one possible reason I might want to concatenate strings is because I might have something else I want to put between them. Maybe I want to print out some sort of multiplication. And if I print out that multiplication, suddenly that number gets placed inside these strings and it all gets smushed together as one output string. So that's one reason we might want to use this plus symbol. And another is when we have variables, but in general know that it is possible to do. So let's go back to just looking at one string. What would happen if I wanted to print out quotations, double quotes? Let's say around the term example. Well, how could I do that? Well, in this case, maybe I'd try to print out double quotes. But you'll notice that I have some error there, and let's see what it says. I'll run this program, and it says, unresolved compilation problems, the left-hand side of an assignment must be a variable, and syntax error on token example, invalid assignment operator at line 6. Now, part of the reason for this is that I have just some weird stuff going on, and it's not exactly telling me that I'm missing quotes or that my quotes are in the wrong place, but it is telling me that there's something going on. And right now, it turns out the way to actually print quotes is by doing something called escaping the quote, or printing an escape sequence. So if I put a backslash, that tells me instead of actually using a quote in the context of the program like the computer might read as just a way to separate out my words, here I actually want to print the quote character. So this sequence, this escape sequence, the backslash quote, prints the quote character. So if I run this, you'll see that now example is in quotes. So I notice I have it at the start, anytime I want a quotation, and at the end of where I want my quotation. So that's called an escape sequence. That's an escape sequence to print out a double quote. Now, what if I want to print out a new line character or a carriage return? So new line would end up being a \n. And this would, notice now, before I run this, I have already my print line. And so I'm already on the next line. But if I run this again, notice I have the next line and the line after that available. That's because this entire string, the entire contents in here, print first. All of the contents print first, and then that includes making a new line. And then at the end, I go to my println statement, And that part tells me to make another new line. And so I can stack this up. I can have several new line characters in a row. And you'll notice that I'll be able to go way down because of all those new lines that I added. So the ones inside and the ones from the print line statement, the one from the print line statement, they all print out. If I delete this and I just have one inside, you'll notice I'm down just one line. Why might I use this? Well, formatting becomes really nice with this. I can split in the middle. Maybe I want another one here. And then, easy poetry right there. Java poetry. Okay, so those are some escape characters. Another one is, what if I want to indicate that this is, that I have a backslash somewhere? Well, a backslash alone is going to try to escape the character next to it. It's going to try to make the big S into an escape character, and it's going to say that's an invalid sequence. So the way I escape a backslash, the way I print out a backslash, is just doing 2 backslashes in a row. So that will print out my 1 backslash in front of the word string. Notice double backslash is very different from double forward slash, which happens outside of this to create a comment. And this is sort of an introduction to escape sequences and printing. There is a worksheet exercise that you can try out inside of the main function, and you can test what you think the output would be against what the output actually is, and that's involving escape sequences. For now, I'm going to cut this video, and we are going to move on to something else in the next one.